strimmers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's Tip runs in a GT3 tour. Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Evo podcast. I'm here with James Taylor, John
Hello.
Barker. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah,
very well,
good.
thank you.
To begin, how's the Capri, John?
The burning question on everyone's.
I did think I got away with it because I did promise that it was going to be at the Goodwood track day.
Yes. Which just happened actually this week.
Yeah. Well, I only have the one picture of it, which is as it was back in May.
Which
Unfortunately, the people who are painting it, they've lost a significant member of staff, so they're a bit short staffed. So not much has happened to it. On the upside, I've only had one invoice. On the downside, I spent the money on an e-bike. So it's not exactly an economical way to go through the summer. But I'm sure when they get round to it, it'll be fantastic. I feel like I'm being trolled by MST, who sent me the kit for the power steering, which I fitted earlier in the year, because they keep sending me lovely shots of their new Escorts and things.
Really? Oh man!
And I think my car should be finished by now. I should have rattling around it and having.
What's actually left? So we've got bodywork.
Well, there is the paint.
Yeah.
So it's bare metal repaint, so it looks silver at the moment, which is not bad, but it's going to be black again.
Mm-hmm.
And then just things to tidy it up. It always had a bit of a frown because the front wings were slightly, it's like soft shouldered. Mm-hmm. They weren't put on quite right, so that's going to be fixed. So it'll give it a much meaner look at the front. And then just little bits like you can put LEDs behind the instruments so they actually light up at night.
So you can actually see them.
Handy.
So it's little refinements like that. Heated front screen you can get. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I've been looking forward to it for quite a long time.
For a good 2 decades.
So yeah, but it's in progress, but not very quickly.
Okay. And James, what have you been up to?
I've been putting a few more miles on our MX-5 long-termer.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned it briefly on the podcast before, but we've got an MX-5 RF 2-litre. Now in print, there's always a bit of turbo lag with when we get the cars and then when they appear with being a monthly mag. But it's the same spec as the car that did so well at Ecoti a couple of years ago. So it's the retractable fastback body, so the motorised kind of coupe roof, as opposed to the soft top. And it's all the little changes that have added up to a kind of greater whole. Like it's got the new diff, it's got the slightly recalibrated power steering. Yeah, it's just such a nice thing. I really, really love it every time I get into it. And did make it to an Evo track day. I did the Brands Hatch one. So just did a few laps of the Indy circuit, and the car felt great.
That's perfect circuit for that, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's one of those cars where at low speeds, at high speeds, in the dry, in the wet, it always feels the same. It's totally consistent. And I can't believe how much kit they fit into it. It's got,
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's a complete car.
Yeah. All the stuff which a few years ago I remember writing about as kit on really high-end luxury cars, adaptive high beam and, all the cruise control stuff, lane keep assist. Yeah, I mean, which you can turn it off, but you have to go into the menus on the top screen.
But it's got nav, it's got air conditioning,
heated
electric
seats,
windows, heated seats,
reversing
in
camera
the headrest as well. Speakers, they're really good.
It doesn't want for anything, and it's still under 1,100 kilos. And it's kind of a magic trick, really.
It is. It's a fabulous bit of kit.
You've just got out of a Boxster.
Yes.
Do you feel like you'd need to spend the extra money on a Boxster to get a rewarding drop top?
Yeah, it's really bad because I wish I could say no, an MX-5 is all you need. And I know there's that cliche, whatever the question, an MX-5 is the answer. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. But that Boxster was particularly good. It was the 4-litre GTS. Which is about as good as it gets.
Unfair comparison.
With the manual gearbox, I mean,
double the price, isn't it, of an MX-5 as well?
I mean, I remember driving that one on an Evo track day at Goodwood, and I can't remember what speed got up to on the back straight, but it was like supercar pace. It's such a fast car, and so I suppose you're not quite comparing like we're like, but I think as a sports car experience that you can drive every day. I've been having to use the passenger seat as an extra bit of boot space because the boot is quite small. So when I've been taking stuff to the tip and things like that.
MX-5.
Yeah, I've been kind of filling
Cleaning
up
out the horses and things. Yeah.
I did have a strimmer actually on the passenger. Put a load of cardboard
Sticking out the
down
top.
and, I had a few sort of boxes and just about managed to close the boot lids. But
because it's still such a small car, isn't it? It's similar in size
it's
to the
actually
original.
shorter than the original, I think, by a few mil possibly. It's a
Slightly
lot wider.
Yeah.
It's quite a wide car by 90 standards, but yeah, it's great, and it's kind of inspiring really that we're still able to do it.
A nice rounded driver's car.
Yeah,
Not particularly quick
yeah,
in the context of one market, but still does everything you need it to do.
yeah, it really, really does.
Rewarding.
Yeah.
Would you have an RF or the soft top?
I think I would have the soft top, I think, because the roof's magic, isn't it? It's like click, click, two kind of releases and then
Chuck it back.
The wind takes it back, doesn't it? You don't even need to.
well, it depends how quick you're going.
Yeah.
And obviously it's lighter, and actually there's a bit more road noise in the RF as well. From some angles it looks great. It looks like a sort of miniature Toyota 2000 GT, and then from other angles it looks really awkward. It's got an angle sensitive car. But yeah, there's a lot to like.
Yeah. You've also been driving a couple of Porsches.
Yeah,
up in Yorkshire.
so keeping with the theme of driving older stuff, we're just kicking off it's sort of a new series in Evo. We're doing a kind of first and latest series, a bit like the Icon stories we've done for so long. And to kick off the series, we've driven the original 911 GT3. We thought the GT3 would be a good place to start. It's famously done quite well in group tests over the years. And it's now 26 years because it came out in 1999.
Wow. So a year older than me.
Yeah, you don't have to depress us every time. So I want to say a big thank you to RPM Specialist Cars of Yorkshire, who very kindly lent us a car which is currently on sale. It's beautiful Arctic Silver 996.1. It was the Gen 1 car. And we tested that up on the North York moors with a brand new 992 Gen 2, the latest GT3. So with the winged body, because it's changed so much now, you can have it with touring with no wing, you can have it with back seats, you can have it with a manual gearbox or PDK. So this was a winged car with PDK and the Visac pack with all the carbon roll cage and so on. But it's an interesting one because in some ways it's changed out of all recognition. You know, the new car is so much more able, so much grippier, so much faster and so much bigger. The wheels kind of dwarf the originals. But in other ways, it's really held on to so much of the DNA is still in it. You know, still naturally aspirated, still revs high. It's still as light as they can make it. There's only 100 kilos between the two cars, which is remarkable given, you know.
And how much has the horsepower gone up in those?
See, the original
26
was,
years?
I think, 355 bhp, if I remember rightly.
Which
and then the
which
new
was
one.
a good output back then.
Yeah.
I never remember it feeling breathless.
Yeah, it's pretty hearty.
Yeah.
And then the new one is over 500. I think 515 off the top of my head. But the nice thing is, and Stu alluded to this on the previous podcast, they've kept the power figure pretty much the same and they're not chasing more power.
Yeah.
As part of the story, I interviewed Andreas Preuninger, who's the head of GT cars at Porsche. And he said, we believe that's the sweet spot, sort of roughly 1,500 kilos with driver and with fluids and roughly 500 horsepower. Because more than that, you need bigger brakes, you need bigger, fatter tyres, you need to beef up the chassis. And just it's a law of diminishing returns and whatever the opposite of a virtuous circle is. And you need turbocharging and all the rest of it. And it's amazing they've managed to hang on to these kind of tenets of it. But the old car,
I was going to say because the power has come through slight increase in capacity, but more revs.
Yeah.
But what does the original one rev to?
The original rev to, I think it was just under 8 off the top of my head. It was the 911 turbo engine,
the
tweaked.
Metzger.
So it was the Metzger engine, and such a charismatic engine. I can see why they've developed that reputation. It kind of sounds a bit rattly at idle, and then as the revs kind of pick up, it takes on this beautiful kind of serrated tone. So interviewing Andreas was really interesting because he said when the car appeared, it was a project of Roland Kusmal, who was the head of motorsport and special projects. They just needed this homologation car, partly for the one make series, partly for GT3 racing, which is how it got its name.
Is it?
And they didn't make a big song and dance about it. It only cost a bit more than a normal Carrera, and it was kind of a part spin special, was how he described it. So the wheels were the optional split rim ones off the Carrera. Aero pack was just the aero kit option, and then for the engine, Hans Metzger retired in the early 90s, so other people did the work to convert it from the Nano 6 turbo engine, and I think different head, and obviously revved higher. Titanium conrods, I think.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, it created this Bitzer, but it was kind of more than the sum of its parts, because it was this really magical driving experience, and today it still feels amazing to drive.
Yeah, it was. I hadn't remembered where I drove it, but yeah, going to chase the Eclipse. Only fond memories of that.
Yeah. I reread that story while I was researching the article.
Yeah. Dickie drove one to Sicily as well, didn't he?
Yeah, you traced the Targa Florio.
Yeah. So
that was really cool.
We made excuses to go and drive it. Big excuses.
Yes, that kind of car.
It was that kind of car.
How does it feel in context of the latest one? Because I've driven the new one.
Yeah.
And I find it's a really polished car, and it's really exciting when you're absolutely on it. But you need to be going quite quick to work it and feel it moving and coming alive underneath you.
I think it's a difficult car to criticise, the new one, because it does so much so well. But it feels wrong to criticise it for being too good.
Too good, yeah.
But yeah, Anthony Ingram, contributing writer to Evo, was also on the test, and he said that was the main thing he found not frustrating about the new car, but you do have to be going really quite quick for it to sort of really feel like you're working the car to its potential, because its limits are so high. Whereas with the older car, there's more weight transfer, there's more going on, and even just driving at regular road speeds, you're sort of working a bit harder.
Yeah.
And you get in the new car, obviously it feels much bigger, the steering's much, much lighter, the brakes are much sharper, and at first you feel a bit kind of discombobulated by it, but then it does the GT3 thing, and it's still such a precise car. You still feel where every corner of it is, and then after a few miles you're so impressed by what it can do. And it doesn't have the Metzger engine anymore, that went a long time ago because of emissions, but now it revs to 9, and the engine is just as magical.
It still sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Oh, it's mad.
I don't know how they do it.
It's got 4 catalytic converters now to meet all the emissions regs.
Yeah.
And it still sounds incredible. It really shrieks at the top end.
Yeah.
And Anthony drove off, actually. I was just turning around in the other car, and I had the windows down, and I heard him in the distance, the breeze is kind of blowing that. It sounds like you're at the Nürburgring 24 hours or something, or Le Mans.
The odd thing about that GT3 was that it was an extrapolation of the standard car.
Yeah.
With a manual gearbox, we had I think Porsche loaned us a bog standard vanilla white 911, 906, and we had it. I think they forgot about it, and we had it for a few months. But it was manual, and it was vocal, and it was engaging. Everything that the GT3 is, but just in sort of slightly smaller portions.
Right.
I think that's what you miss with. I think the manual is particularly what you miss with the modern DSG cars.
Yeah.
And that gives you that connection with the car at low speeds as well.
Yeah.
So I think they miss a trick there. But you can get the new one.
You can, because it's a car where...
Have we driven it?
Yes.
I've driven the manual as well. Yeah,
Good
you've driven it
manual?
on Lord.
Yeah.
It's a really nice manual. I think I prefer it to the ST, because that had the really
with the super
lightweight
light,
clutch,
light flywheel,
which is amazing when you're on it and when you get it right.
But
then
road
otherwise
driving,
you just feel like a learner driver, because you can't rev match. And
It's absolutely not the sort of thing just to mooch around in, is it?
Yeah,
'Cause it's so hard work to...
it's got a narrow window, I think. But
Yeah.
How would you spec yours then? Having driven them both?
I think it would depend what I wanted to do with it. I think if it was a road car, I'd want to have the touring body. I think maybe even have the rear seat option, just 'cause it's useful to chucking extra bits of luggage in and stuff.
Yeah, streamers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's tip runs in a GT3 tour.
Not the cage then. It's too clunky to get the strimmer in there.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want the cage. Yeah. So I think for road, it'd be really nice to have a subtle one, probably with the manual gearbox for that extra engagement. But if I wanted to do track stuff, then do track days. It'd be nice to have. you have to be going pretty quick for the wing to make a difference. But I think, and also the PDK, it's still got involvement and it is still so responsive. And when I was lucky to do that Nürburgring training earlier in the year, that was in a PDK GT3. And being able to keep both hands on the wheel, you know, while you're learning a challenging track.
There are situations. Yeah, if you do the Nürburgring 24 hours, I wouldn't do it in a manual.
Imagine missing a gear or something.
Yeah, because then
your shoulder would be massive at the end.
And your left leg as well.
Actually, it's one thing in the older car, I found myself setting the seat a bit closer just because the clutch pedal's pretty heavy. You did like a bit more bend in my left leg just to. But I think it's nice that Porsche offers so much choice with it now. It's definitely been a car that's been shaped by customer feedback, you know, because they so easily could have lost their way with it and sort of built a car they think people want, but people want a manual gearbox. They want the option of different shells, and they develop those folding bucket seats. They can put a rear seat option in, and they price it the same, so it's the same price whether you go for the wing or not the wing, or whether you go for PDK or the manual. Really interesting.
So you can personalise them now, but the original ones, they were only about 4 colours, weren't it?
And
Did you look through all the ads after you've driven it?
I've been down a complete rabbit hole, so desperately trying to find the money to see if I can stretch to a 996.
How much are they now? About 60
so
grandish?
This car that's RPM Specialist Cars, Connie Lowndes, it's for sale with them. Unless it's been sold between recording this podcast and this going out, it's up for £67,000.
Okay.
And then I've seen others that are sort of north of 85, but the going rate seems to be sort of 65 to 85, depending.
That seems like a bargain for what you're getting. Because like a 997 Gen 2 GT3, which is often talked about as the Halo best one, last analog one, they're about 110, I think, starting.
Yeah, and you do wonder if they'll go up in the future.
They're only about 90, I think, last time I looked.
Oh, really? Yeah, we've all been looking, haven't we?
So, and silver's the colour as well.
Yeah, it looks great, Arctic silver, the colour this car was in. But it's turned into such a phenomenon since, and nobody at Porsche knew it was going to turn into this incredible, you know, depreciation-proof collector's item. Speaking to Andreas Preuninger, he said, you know, this whole division has grown around the car since, but at the time, people within Porsche were actually quite surprised there was enough demand to make a second batch of them. And with the RS models, which have gone on to become cult cars in their own rights, they weren't actually going to do an RS special. They needed to homologate, I think, another 200 cars with a different front upright, because they found in racing it was wearing out its front tyres, I think. So to drive longer stints, they wanted to homologate a different front upright for it to change the camber, I guess.
It's nice to hear it's been driven by motorsport demand, isn't it?
It's definitely, it's all authentic motorsport stuff, which is the really nice thing. And they were just going to stick these uprights on 200 cars and not tell anyone. And he said, well, no, hang on, let's do something special with this.
So they presumably they did the first 100 kilos off, because the RS always was 100 kilos lighter, wasn't it?
Right, yes.
And I think the GT3 was only like something like 50.
Yeah, because the first one was not really any lighter than a normal 996 Carrera, because they used a stiffer shell from the Carrera 4, and it still had electric windows and all that stuff. And then if you optioned it with the roll cage and stuff, it was, I think, could even be a bit heavier than a normal one.
Wow, yeah.
And in fact today, which shows how hard the engineers have worked to keep the weight down, I think there's only about 100 kilos between a brand new GT3 and the original from 1999.
And that, over that period, because I think the second gen 996 was about 380 horsepower, so it's only gained another 120 horsepower. If you look at all the other stuff, like
an M5 has gone 3 times as powerful, isn't it?
An M3, M4 has gone the same way.
Weight has ballooned as well.
Yeah.
You know, if they kept chasing the power, it would have turned into a very different car.
But they had the option there, didn't they? Because they got a turbo and they got a GT2.
GT2s,
So you got other outlets for those desires and what customers want in other ways.
Yeah. We recently just finished our Eras series, where we've been through all the decades of performance cars since the 80s.
Yeah.
But this is a chance to directly compare, isn't it? Original and new.
Yeah, it was almost like skipping from that first test
exactly. Doing them at the same time. Was there anything you missed from the earlier car, and did it make you wish that we'd gone back in some way and made the car smaller and lighter today?
I think size is the obvious one. I mean, I would say the new car doesn't feel too big for the road the way some cars do. You get in some modern performance cars, you think, God, I'm taking up the entire space between both white lines here, and it doesn't feel like that. You still have space to work with. But the original, you can reach out with your, in a right-hand drive car, reach out with your left hand and touch the passenger door quite easily. And if you have a passenger, it's pretty cozy. And then in the new car, if you're in it with a passenger, it feels like they're sat quite a long way from you. And definitely miss the size and also the vision, the all-round vision with the slimmer pillars and so on.
Yeah. But then you can go back another generation with the 3.2 that we drove.
Yes.
That was really sweet, wasn't it? Yeah.
But that was so small.
Tiny.
That was tiny.
Yeah,
It really was a small car.
The interesting thing about driving this 996, it felt as close to that car you've just mentioned as it does to the new one. It felt, and I suppose time-wise it is closer to that, but it
just visually it doesn't look like it's anything like the original, does it? It's transformed.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, the new car's got these complex surfaces and enormous wheels, and the brakes at the time were beefy on the original, and they look like sort of milk bottle tops. And the new one looks like dustbin lids. But both were kind of magical in their own way. Yeah, and I can't. It's a cop out, but I can't really pick a winner. I mean, the new car is better, of course, but
better.
Yes, I know you're a sucker for the 997, John. That's
I would
holy grail.
I would still go there. Yeah, if the Capri was going to be turned into anything modern, then it would more modern.
Yeah,
it would probably be that car.
Yeah,
GT3. So I think that was the sweet spot for me.
Mm-hmm. The Gen 1 or Gen 2?
Gen 1's good enough. I don't know.
You're not fussy.
Not going to get greedy.
Yeah. I've been driving something from...
Yeah, you've been driving something even older, but also brand new.
I would say from John's era, but I think John came in a bit later.
Well, you could have done that. You could have done a comparison. You could have an original and this car that you drove, couldn't you?
Yes,
It's like
that's true.
a modern take on it, isn't it?
So it's the official name is the Eagle Lightweight E-Type GTR.
Okay.
GTR is a bit of an odd choice because it's like the most un-GTR car.
It makes me think of either a McLaren F1 or a Nissan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's their new lightweight kind of coupe race car inspired road car. So it costs over £1 million. Yeah, it's fully rebuilt.
The weird thing is, I'm not even surprised.
I know.
That's just the price to be 7 figures rather than 6.
Yeah.
Is there anything of the original car in it?
Do you know what? This is what surprised me because I think a lot of resto mods, they go the whole hog and throw everything out apart from the chassis plate and just do something completely new. But this was designed to feel like an E-Type still, so it's still got the 4.7 litre straight six. The chassis is strengthened.
4.2 it would have been back in the day.
Right, yeah. That's my knowledge.
Or a 3.8.
Yeah.
Or 3.8.
Yeah, but it's essentially that 4.2 but balled out to 4.7.
That makes sense.
And it's got the same fundamental structure, just stiffened up in various places. Still got torsion bar at the front, front suspension. So it's not been fully modernised, but the key areas they've looked at are the chassis, the engine. It's got its own gearbox as well, just to make it more usable, but still feeling like an E-Type. And I haven't driven a normal E-Type, but I doubt they feel as precise and approachable and as fun as this one did. It was really
they don't
sweet.
Slow down brilliantly, do they? Originally?
No,
yeah,
and they were on pretty narrow tyres.
Yeah, and the other thing they've tried to do is they were saying that the original E-Type was made for cross-ply tyres, all the geometry and everything, and it was never adapted for radials. So they've changed the geometry on this while keeping fundamentally the same kind of suspension system to work with more modern tyres. But it was an absolute riot. I mean, it's always intimidating looking at a car that costs 7 figures and that's been pristinely restored, and the guy hadn't even driven it who'd bought it. It was his it was like an initiation for the car. Yeah.
Was it raining? Or
it was raining, yes,
yeah,
it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
In North Wales. North Wales, yeah.
Okay.
Festiniog kind of area.
Yeah, beautiful.
yeah.
They're not based there, are they?
They're not, no. I think they're Sussex way. Yeah. But I think it's a testament to the car that you can just jump in it and drive it like an MX-5 almost. Like, it's very approachable, very friendly, very tractable.
How much does it weigh?
It weighs under a ton, actually, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? Not much more than an Elise. But again, it's like, it didn't drive like a 60s, 70s car. in many ways, but it still had that raw feedback that you want from an older car.
Yeah.
So still on carburetors, so a bit fluffy in the mid-range, and then sounds amazing as you rev it out, smoothens out and everything.
It's a dream. Like lightweight E-Type is one of my dream cars. Not only the way it looks, but also when you watch them at Goodwood, they look so beautifully balanced.
Yeah. I was quite surprised actually, because this was on modern tyres, and I think they're wider at the front and the back as well, wider tracks.
And the wheels, are they like disc wheels, like sort of Dunlop?
They're
it's not on wire wheels, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they're on magnesium wheels that are wider than the standard ones, on wider tracks as well.
Okay.
And I was kind of expecting, like you were saying, like the E-Type you see at Goodwood, just sliding the whole time and being on tiptoes, but it wasn't really like that, even in the wet. It was quite secure and sure-footed, and when it did move, it was kind of like a modern car in a way that would kind of let go quite quickly. You've got to be quick with your hands.
Okay.
But
Is
yeah,
that
just
part of the GTR kind of spec, those kind of wide wheels and that kind of
I think
tune.
I think fundamentally it's very similar to what they've made before with the lightweight GT, but the owner wanted to go a bit more extreme with this one and make it kind of a race car for the road.
Okay.
And they were warning me before I drove it. They're like, it's quite extreme and it's more extreme than what we've done before. But I drove it and I was like, this is quite livable and quite supple. It's on Öhlins dampers, loads of torque from the engine. So it was a really nice thing.
Did it remind you of anything in particular? Because you haven't driven an E-Type, so...
No, do you know what? This sounds a bit crude, but it reminded me of a big Caterham in a way. Just like sitting on the back axle, driving it on the throttle, quite a raw experience, quite physical. All the controls are quite heavy, but again, really well resolved. Like all the slack of a 60s car taken out and all the good bits left. So it did feel old, but it still let you drive it like a modern car.
There's something very classy about a straight six.
Yes,
it's a very English engine.
Yeah,
Aston and Jaguar.
And I love carbs because it's just like different layers through the whole rev range. Like at low revs, it's chuntering and it wants to cut out, but then as soon as you give it some revs, it wants to
changes.
And it smoothens out quite nicely. So,
so I guess you haven't been to the small lads then to see if there's.
Do you know what? One car came up online recently. I have been looking at E-Types since then. But yeah, I don't know. I think just the effort and the money it would take to replicate that. I mean, they'd be doing it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And there is a reason they cost £1 million to make them feel in that way that they do.
Is each one kind of custom built to its customer? Does each person choose a different kind of
I think it's quite hard to nail down a model range almost, because there's like 3 or 4 base cars that you can pick from, and then the customer can spec them however they want. So this customer started with the lightweight GT and wanted it even lighter, even more extreme. They wanted the 4.7 litre engine. I think there's a wide angle head as well that he's chosen to make it rev a bit higher.
Okay.
Still only 5,500, which doesn't seem very high to be, but more
Not
than
after
the original.
GT3.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really, really sweet thing. And I think it's always weird, like you don't really know how to judge cars like that because they're so far out of reach, but it's kind of an expression of what is possible at that level with that much attention to detail. It's a really, really special thing.
I think it's quite interesting what people say in the market at the moment for classic cars. The E-Type's just sort of fading now. It's had its moment in the spotlight.
They were
seems
up
to
to
track.
6 figures, weren't they?
Oh yeah. So you might be able to get an original.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I did ask about maybe putting their suspension on like an E-Type that I bought myself, and they were like, we probably couldn't do that. And I was like, fair enough, a bit out of my price range.
Just the brakes would be nice.
Yeah.
And a classic
E-Type with
modern
brakes.
braking.
Well,
brakes,
they were. I think they were the first cars with disc brakes, weren't they?
Yeah.
Was it famously the press car had a Le Mans engine or something? Because it was the first 150 mile an hour car. That was the headline.
This seems a bit strong.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm probably, this is libelous, but I'm pretty sure they stuck a D-Type engine from a Le Mans car in it or something, and that's what they gave the journalists to drive.
Just to give it a good bit of a boost.
Yeah.
Have you guys driven any resto mods in the last few years?
I've driven one Eagle. Sadly, I've never driven an original E-Type. I would love to. I had a brief passenger ride in a Series 2 once. I was so impressed with how smooth it was over speed bumps and stuff. It felt really the ride felt very modern.
I've driven a couple, and they are... Well, the way you described the one that you drove, the Eagle, it's not that different. They are a bit more slidey.
Tiptoes.
But great engine.
Yeah,
real bouncing off the walls of a... we were in the south of France. We went to do the launch of an XJS.
Okay.
facelift XJS, and there was a guy who we knew down there. He had two. He had a coupe and a convertible.
Oh, cool.
So got to razz around in both of them up and down the hills, and it was really good. You can you can see why it was such a great car at the time, because it's still a great car now.
Yeah.
I love that scene in the Italian Job. I mean, obviously it ends badly when they bump into the mafia, but there's a few seconds where I think they have a coupe and a Roadster retype and the DB4 Aston, and they're charging up the hills.
Handsome cars.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, we need to all chip in and get a long-termer.
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
An E-type project car in Fastly. Actually, you probably don't want another project car, do you?
No.
You've got one to finish.
Not yet.
Yeah. Cool. Well, should we wrap it there?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
We'll all go and check the classifieds for.
Yep, I think we're all off to CarWow. We'll have a look on CarWow. Any E-types.
We're looking at a finance deal.
Yeah. Got myself out of that one. Well, thank you very much, guys. And remember, like, subscribe, comment, and see you on the next one.
See you.
Cheers.